Welcome to the Liberated Equestrian Podcast and community. This is a place for horsewomen to experience belonging, breakthrough, and becoming. I'm your host, Lisa Pulliam, founder of StableMinded.us, mental health professional, second season equestrian, and author of Finding Calm, helping riders navigate through fear and anxiety. The Liberated Equestrian is devoted to the mission of being set free and experiencing breakthroughs in every aspect of our horsemanship and humanship. This is all about mind, body, heart, and soul care for ourselves, our horses, and the people we do life with, so that we can grow together as a community of emotionally and relationally healthy horsewomen. So find a comfortable spot, take a deep breath, and let's embark on this journey of becoming liberated equestrians together. Hi, Katie. I'm so glad to have you here today on the Liberated Equestrian Podcast. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your life in the equestrian industry and in the equestrian sport.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to talk with you. And on this podcast is something I'm very passionate about. But for me, I started riding when I was 9 or 10 years old. I started, like many do, in the hunter jumper world, made that transition, fell into dressage with my first pony, and was always heavily involved in the local dressage community, the organization. I served on the board as a youth member, as well as founded and show managed our Decades of Dressage show, which is very popular, and had won a USDF award, as well as aside from my own competitive career of earning my USDF bronze and silver medal. And now I find myself at Liberty University pursuing a business degree in project management, as well as competing on the Hunt Seat equestrian team here at Liberty. And aside from that, I am also an equestrian entrepreneur. So that's, different from being a trainer, but I have started the Equine Professionals Club that I'd love to kind of get into and talk about a little later.
Yeah.
But the liberated equestrian, I think, is such an important, and I love this avenue, and an important topic for equestrians to discuss. And for me, kind of that means the freedom, the life balance, the peace that you have within your sport. And that can look different for everyone and also be a confusing time to figure out what that looks like for you.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to talk more about that today.
Me too. And, for our listeners, like our first point of connection was actually through the Equine Professional Club. So I stumbled on the postcard in the local tack store and looked at it and thought, I'm going to join this directory. And then you reached out and said, hey, can we do a little feature interview on you? And our Zoom conversation around that interview, I was super inspired by your energy and even the sense of like, our conversation went a little bit deep in terms of like faith and mental health because you are at Liberty University. And for those who don't know, it is a Christian university. And you and I have that connection from a faith perspective. And then also this idea of mental health and that your own struggle in that journey. And so I thought I definitely want to have you on this podcast because you come to us as a young woman entering into this field, whatever that's going to look like for you. And you have also been competing and experienced it both at the high school and the college level way more recently than most of us who are listening to this podcast or on the podcast. And so I really want your perspective of what you think are the present struggles for a female equestrian in that high school, college range in terms of mental health and decision-making for a career.
Yeah. So I think for anyone, regardless of being an equestrian, that high school time of figuring out what the heck am I going to do? What career path am I going to go down? How do I turn my competitive career that has taken up so much of a part of my life into the next step, the next goal, the next future endeavor? And sometimes, unfortunately for many, it drops off when you go to college. And, whether that be finances of trying to make your decision of is, entering into the horse world full time, something that is possible for me, regardless of or based upon your access to different horses and riding and competing. And I think there's always that little bit of a dream in each one of us of wanting to be a horse trainer full time. And, that's what we do. And for some, that works out, and that is something that they get to right away after high school. And some, that's a little bit later after a college degree or on the side, however that looks like for each individual person. And that is different. And for me, something I always kind of struggled with within high school was, I was doing a working student position. I was competing in FEI dressage, and I thought, oh my gosh, I would love to do this as my full-time career. However, for me, it was always very important within my family. You're gonna, go to school and get a degree, and you have that backup plan. And horses can always be a part of my life. And for me in particular, a very transformative experience was within college. I decided, I'm going to college. That was always a part of the plan. And in my degree of business and project management, that's always something else that I was passionate about. But even throughout that first year of college, I always thought to myself in the back of my head, I was like, what would my life look like if it was different? And, I was training full time, doing a working student. I went to Florida, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always had that sliver of doubt in my mind, and a really great opportunity that kind of helps solidify it's okay to come back to it later. Was I went on the Young Rider Dream Program through the Dressage Foundation, and they do a lot of grants and scholarships for young riders, and not just young riders that want to be a professional one day, but young riders with experience through third, fourth level, kind of those upcoming professionals, possibly within the industry. And upon going, I met with tons of incredible people, Olympians, the highest top of the sport of dressage in the US. And for me, the experience, it was incredible. I loved it. But for me personally, I thought, you know what? This was a great opportunity to experience the highest degree of this sport. And I recognized to myself, it's okay to pursue another career and
Wow.
do horses on the side. Because
Wow.
I not only did I talk to really high level trainers, but barn owners who didn't do it as their profession, but had a very successful career in business or real estate, whatever that may be, and then does training and developing and breeding on the side as their hobby. And that's something that I really took away from that trip was, wow, I can have a career to support myself, support my passion, because finances in the horse world are, of course, difficult.
Yes.
So I really did identify on that trip that I do want to have a balanced lifestyle of another profession, of family, and do horses on the side. And so that was very transformative, and I think a difficult thing for many people my age and deciding when's the right time or how does horses and training come into my life while I look to the future.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think it is a challenge. And I think I'm listening to you. I'm thinking about the age span of our listeners and how many older women might be listening who didn't have that choice because they weren't exposed to that at your age. And they sit here and they're like, wow, I wonder what would have happened if I would have done X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And how many young listeners there are on listening in right now who are thinking, well, I don't know what I want to do. I know I want horses to be a part of my life, but I don't know what my career trajectory could be. And I
Yeah.
think you point out a real struggle in the industry, which is horses are expensive.
Yes.
And, uh, and I'll have barn managers on the podcast and trainers on the podcast. And the common theme that I hear when I chat with these folks is that there's never enough time in the day to do all the
Mm-hmm.
work that needs to be done. And
Yeah.
even so, there's not enough income to cover all the expenses and have any break. And I feel like you maybe got a viewpoint of that as a working student. So I was wondering if you can tell
Mm-hmm.
us a little bit more about what that was like as a working student before you even got to college.
Yeah, so my working student position was a little bit unique from generally what you kind of visualize as a working student position. I was the only kind of youth rider in the barn with my trainer, and got a horse specifically donated to her foundation for me to ride. So
Oh,
it
wow.
was just through a very private uh, trainer relationship, not a big opportunity that most people seek out. Working student in a certain area. It was more local, and was an incredible experience for me, very transformative. But even just in my discussions with a bunch of trainers that I clinicked with within my local area. I had a lot of trainers tell me, or a lot of barn owners tell me, don't go into horses. Don't go into horses. And as a little girl, that can be really saddening and really upsetting and say, well, I really wanted to. Why not?
Hmm.
And I had multiple trainers tell me, um, I don't have a social life. I don't ever go on vacation. I'm burnt out. I'm exhausted. And I think this points back to a lot of the problems you were talking about, especially a new um, survey and marketing research that has come out regarding barn management finances, long term investments, the struggles of the industry that
Hmm.
I had talked about and kind of collaborated on talking with at the USDF convention. This is a big topic
Hmm.
within professionals within the sport, that there is so much struggle within finances and long-term planning and entering into the industry because it is so financially difficult to make a living,
Hmm.
um, and be happy and be a balanced person within the industry. And on my trip in Florida, one of my favorite questions to ask was, how do you handle work-life balance?
Hmm.
And almost every person had told me, either chuckled and giggled and told me, there's not much of that. I don't really have that.
Right.
And now in season in Wellington, in Ocala, whatever it is very intense, and shows are on the weekend. But regardless, there were many women who chuckled on the fact of work-life balance. And that's something that's very important to me, and something I logged in my brain of saying, okay, I can't really bring any advice for anyone out of this, but this is a huge observation of
Uh-huh.
what the lifestyle looks like.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's important to hear it presently. It's being spoken to. You're in it, in the middle of it right now. This is recent. And many of the women that I work with in my coaching space and in counseling space as well, the questions I work with are struggling in their current barn situations. They're not feeling supported, say, by a trainer, or they're being told that this is a certain way that they're supposed to do this. And there's some that are pursuing some competition, but they're basically like second season recreational riders who just
Mm-hmm.
want to have a nice, cozy little spot to play with their horse. And what they're up against is not that warm fuzziness that they're looking for. We need to kind of hold this perspective of the people who are providing the space and the care of our horses are doing it at a cost of their personal life. And if we showed up that way, like we're not just here to play with our horses, but if we showed up with that kind of exhaustion and burnout just to put money on the table, we probably would be a little bit prickly. We would be a little bit irritable. We wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be the extra graciousness that we ideally want to be because what we're doing is spending out of an empty tank, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
what you're saying is in at least in this competitive world. And I want to fill in some blanks here because some people may not know what you're talking about. So in the dressage circuit, in the hunter jumper circuit, in the eventing circuit, especially on the East Coast, which is where we are, but this is also true like around the world, there are seasonal locations for training and competitions. So on the
Mm-hmm.
East Coast, the Northerners go down to Florida
Yes.
and they are spending 3 months at a time competing every weekend and even throughout the week in these circuits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the privilege of being at the World Equestrian Center in February just to visit, and there was a show the day I happened to be there, and it on the outside it looks big and fancy and absolutely beautiful, but horses are still pooping and they're still getting ulcers from being trailered in, and there's somebody that needs to haul in and haul out, and there's a lot of money at stake and there's a lot of stress with that, and so that is the competitive side, and even the recreational side of the industry that for some of our listeners, they're like, I have no idea what this is about. I just kind of go to the local ranch show
Right.
and do my horsey thing there, right?
Right. Which you see, and there's the height of the biggest competition career that is incredible. And it's possible to find peace and to find balance there as well. But you see a lot of balance in the hobbies and the
Mhm.
enjoyment of a balanced lifestyle, of family, of a career, of going to the local shows and enjoyment of your journey with your horse. And that is something that is so special. And I'd like to see be more prioritized or talked about at the highest level
Mm,
are those peaceful moments of remembering why we do what we do and the
mhm.
enjoyment and the love of the horses and the peace that they bring. Because I think sometimes when we are just chasing the next score, we're chasing the next medal, whatever that is, um, the lines can be blurred
Mhm.
and you kind of forget why you started in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, that little girl who just liked to be with the furry thing
Just
that carried her around,
exactly.
right? Becomes this object of these measurement points. And I think that would be a good transition into, the height of your high school competitive career. You were like driven for a goal. You had yet to realize that this wasn't going to be your like professional endeavor. What was that like for your school life balance and your mental health and
Yeah.
how you perceived yourself and how you showed up in the world? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so freshman year was of high school was 2019, 2020. And so that was a year to begin with COVID starting.
COVID, I was gonna say.
So March started COVID and we shut down and went completely online. And so that following school year, sophomore year, was completely hybrid the whole year. And so that was a very unusual school situation, but it also did allow me to be able to pursue a working student position while in high school.
Mm,
And so that opportunity came to me after I had been riding my mare for a very long time and competing in the lower levels of dressage. Um, and my trainer had seen kind of the drive and the passion that I had for dressage and training and developing my mare. And so that opportunity of riding at the next level came to me that fall. And so I already had a period of time of shutdown with COVID. And apart from all of that, that year was kind of the year that everything hit me all at one.
mhm,
And I had a lot of mental health difficulties ever since I was little. I've had, anxiety as a little girl, and OCD as well, running in my family. And 2020 also was a huge hit of a different wave of symptoms. And so I went through a lot of changes with medication, so many different waves of
mm,
doing okay, not doing great, doing okay, not doing great. And so that opportunity to ride the schoolmaster and compete the schoolmaster that I did was a great outlet and a great way for me to have something to pour into throughout lockdown and throughout my mental health difficulties as well. But it also was very difficult. And showing up to the barn when I am just in a complete mode of panic, not really knowing why, not being able to handle that, and then working to try to pay my way with that horse to compete was a stressor. But I think when I just loved the opportunity to be able to do that. And it was an incredible experience, but I think it really showed me how people never know what's going on the inside. People
right.
just see that outer shell of
Mhm,
what you're presenting to the world. And for me, in the midst of all of my mental health crisis of about a year or two, that was very difficult in management and therapy. Another big proponent of therapy
yeah, yeah.
and counseling. But I would go out and compete. I had earned my medals fairly quickly within 2 years on a horse that was very difficult and a little bit older, and stiff and had quirks. So it was not an easy schoolmaster journey to begin with, but then
Mhm.
also not an easy journey for me personally. And on the outside, you could see, oh, she's getting all these scores. She's, you know, earning her medals at such a young age. She's, running these horse shows. Wow, how dandy is her life going?
Mhm.
And really on the inside, it was, I get back from training and I get back from my horse show and I'm in a broken state, and
Mhm.
I just, I couldn't feel happy and I
Mhm.
couldn't feel excited. And while that didn't have anything to do with the nature of my working student position, it was a completely personal journey of time of my life, and COVID not helping. A lot of people, I have heard, have found the burnout and things come from the working student position, and
Mhm.
that be the source. And for me, that wasn't the source. But regardless, bringing all of those things together, pursuing a passion, pursuing a competitive career, you never know what's going on the
Yeah.
inside of anyone's journey. And I think that's just a huge um, thing to mention within the horse industry in
Mhm.
particular, because we're always chasing the next thing. We're never satisfied. And I think
Yeah.
it's important to understand that there is struggle underneath the outward expression of
Yeah.
success.
Yeah. And I'm sorry you had to go through that
Yeah.
for sure.
It
I
was
can
it was
only
a
imagine.
difficult time, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because it has made me who I am today. It has um, better helped me prepare my future.
Mm.
Um, if I can get through that, I can get through anything. And
Yeah.
I look back now with being very proud of what
Mhm.
I've been through. Not only the successes I've had with horses, but more about the six or the being proud of who I became because
Yeah.
of that certain 2 years of time.
Yeah.
And now I have found so much more balance and so much more peace in the present and looking to the future. And it is a journey, and going through counseling and therapy or a need of medication that you may need,
Mhm.
um, it is very difficult. And I think sometimes we each have our Goliath, is what my mom and I call it. We each
Yeah.
have our big thing that we have to go through in life. And it's not always at the same time for everyone. And for me, my mom, had told me that for me, it was early.
Yeah.
And, but it's what's going to make me stronger. And I
Mhm.
love the analogy of a young tree being planted. If
Mhm.
it's protected from all of the elements, later on, it's not going to be strong and it'll crack. But
Yeah.
when you're young and that young tree is exposed to the wind, the rain, the thunder, whatever it is,
Mhm.
its roots dig deeper and is so much stronger because of it. And I
Mhm.
think that has just helped me in my vision and pursuing my future of what that looks like career wise and for horses, because
Yeah.
I do want balance. And I know that's necessary because of so much of the intensity that I had during my competitive career and making those changes for my future.
Yeah. Yeah. You experienced it early on, and there will be struggles in the future. You will hit
Mm-hmm.
those walls, and the temptation is to say, why am I going through this? I already went through my hard. But the reality is, and you and I know this, from now until eternity, there is suffering, right? And
Yes.
we're going to hit these walls. But it sounds like you developed resiliency skills. You developed the ability to ask for help. You developed the
Mm-hmm.
ability to recognize your limits. You develop the ability to say, hey, I can't do this just on my own. And found the support in mental health and medication. And there's a big stigma about that in the Christian circle, even. So I want to push into that a little bit in that how did your faith help you or not help you during that
Yeah.
season?
It was a huge part of it. And both of my parents have been such an inspiration and very important for me getting through all of my struggle, um, and prayer and time that I didn't know what was going on. I was just confused in
Mhm.
within the brokenness. And it was such an impactful time for me to recognize that I have nothing without God, and that I needed him during that time, because that he was the only thing that was going to get me through that time in my life of mental health struggle. And listening to music and going to church, listening to the different messages and just really taking it all in, and my devotional that he just knew exactly what I needed every day. As I opened that devotional and I looked and I just started crying because I knew that he sent me that day. You know, it was a
Mm-hmm.
devotional that had a particular date in it. And I would show my mom and be like, how did he know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that, going through that during high school and having to mature so early on because of that difficulty really built my solid faith and is a huge part of my testimony,
Mm-hmm.
um, in my relationship with God, and why I have, why I am even where I am right now at Liberty University,
Yeah.
being such an important part of me. And seeing God in all of the moments of being not at my competitive career,
Yeah.
actually. It
Yeah.
was just in the peaceful moments of the sunset with my little mare and my mom right next to me and talking, knowing that I felt so broken because of the mental health struggle I was going through. But
Mm-hmm.
the peace, not only with my mare, reading everything of
Mm-hmm.
my own state, but the beautiful sunset and God telling me that it was going to be okay. And
Yeah.
that's something that was just absolutely beautiful. And it was a huge part of me being who I am today and getting through the hard times that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're describing is that you're not just a athlete, you're not just
No.
a professional. You are first a human. You're a child of
Mm-hmm.
God, and you found support through connection, which is what I talk about all the time. I mean, that's what, at the heart of this liberated equestrian idea is that we need connection. And you had that connection with your mare, and you had enough, it sounds like healthy training and mentorship around you to recognize that this horse wasn't the product to help you meet your end goal, but this
No.
horse was a sentient being that was with you in that
Mm-hmm.
circumstance. And then to have that picture of your mom being right there and then God showing up in creation and all of that right there to carry you through. And I bet there's more people that can relate to that kind of struggle that feels so private and so vulnerable, and some who didn't have the mom standing there,
Yeah.
right? Or had the trainer yelling in their ear, or dealt with some sort of other thing, and they're like, well, what do I do now? And I think that, as we think about this idea of like liberation and freedom, and I've been saying throughout the season of like, let the breaking moments be the breakthrough, right? And
Yes,
that's
I
what
love
you
that.
you have described is that this could have broken you, but it became
Yeah.
part of the breakthrough of your formation.
Mm-hmm.
And
And just my future. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And something that my mom has always been a proponent of and emphasizing is, and this applies so well to the equestrian world, is your identity is not dependent on your sport. What
yeah,
others may think of you, your competitive career, none of that is what defines you as a person. You're so much more than an equestrian. And in my mom's case, you are so much more than a basketball player. You're so much more than a football player. Whatever that sport is for you, that passion, that desire, you're a child of God at the heart of your whole being. And
hmm
I think that is something that gets really lost when we burn the candle at both ends, and the culture of the industry right now of
hmm
not enough time in the day, there's never that time to find that peace and calm and balance, and remembering that you are so much more than what this career is for you. And
hmm
yes, it's okay to love something so much and have this huge passion that we all are a little bit crazy and loving,
uh-huh.
the horses. But I just feel that the equestrian community and industry, it just encourages imbalance and sacrifice to the point of the mental and physical exhaustion that takes us away from our true identity.
Yeah, I don't think I could say it any better. I mean, that is at the heart of it, whether we're looking at a barn owner, a trainer, a riding instructor, a hobbyist, a competitor. I think the question is, where can we find balance in caring for our mind, heart, body, and soul while pursuing this passion that we have for horses
Mm-hmm.
so that we can show up better for our horses and better for the humans that we are with, right?
Yes. And I don't know if you use this within your sessions, but something I have learned or been exposed to is, what you value at your core. If I were to take away this, what would you have? If I were to take away this, what would you have? This, this, this. And that's something important to talk about, not only career wise as an individual that loves horses, but as a person and your
Mhm.
identity. And something I always thought of was, if you were to take horses away, let's say you have a huge injury and you're no longer able to be the trainer, farrier, whatever, your profession is. What's your backup plan, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's that career aspect of what's your backup plan. Do you have a degree, something strong to have as a foundation for your career choices? But then on the flip side, also, if I take away horses, if I take away the, equivalent basketball or football, whatever your sport is, what do you have and who are you? And I think that's something that people don't know. And they don't know, if you take away my horses or you take away the competition, I don't really, who am I? I don't know,
Yeah.
because it is such a lifestyle and part of you.
Yeah.
But at the core, you are the child of God. You are your relationships and your family. For me, particularly, I'm not only the child of God, but I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a girlfriend, all of those different things that make you who you are. And I think within the lifestyle of the equestrian community, you just, it dwindles you
Yeah.
and encourages an unhealthy mindset of
Yeah.
your involvement in the sport.
I think it's true. I think it's actually an issue in the culture at large of people don't ask you, hey, how are you? When you're meeting somebody, networking, it's, hey, what do you do? and
Mm-hmm.
and our identity is what we do. And I see this with moms quite often, who, what do they do? They're moms. Well, then their children grow up and leave, and then what do? And they have lost their identity, or their children don't turn out the way that they want them to turn out, and then they're in like a crisis because this is a reflection on me. And it's the same. You're giving a beautiful example of it with the sport and within the horse world. And I do always kind of have this picture of like, can I hold this thing with open hands? Because the minute I start clenching a fist around something, oh, we're going to have issues. And I noticed that I had a situation a couple weeks ago where it came out of my mouth before I knew what I was saying. And it was like, if I'm not ever able to do equine assisted work again, I don't even know what I would want to do with my life. I wouldn't even want to get out of bed. And all of a sudden, like, my husband and my daughter looked at me like, "What?" I was like, "No, no, no, I don't mean it like that." Like, and I had to like backpedal and backpedal. It was just, that's the thing that delights me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet I had a moment with each of them, myself and God, of like, oh, that better not become something that is I'm putting my fists around. That better just be a blessing, not a
Yes.
demand,
Yes.
right?
And
Right.
something in my own therapy that I have talked about is, you know, you are the child of God, and everything around you are extras. They're
Yeah.
all blessings that help build who you are, but they aren't who you are.
Mhm.
And I think, the competitive career, my mare who means so much to me, my family, my all of the friends, faith, well, faith is the center, but everything else are those extra additional things that make life so incredible. But if I had none of that, I would feel secure in being valuable, because I am a child of God and I was created in his image. And that was a huge part of my recovery and my own transformation and just growth.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. It's so cool. It's so cool for you to be your age and to be wrestling that out. It's going to shape the rest of your life, like you said. So as we kind of like begin to go to the end of this podcast and like wrap things up a little bit, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about the Equine Professional Club and what your intentions are with that. What is that about? How do you,
Yes.
yes, tell us more about that.
Yes. So last year I was moving to school, and I have a lot of friends who they're bringing their horses. While I chose not to bring my mare with me, they don't know who's in their area. And they think, oh my gosh, I'm moving my horse 6 hours away, however far away. I don't know what trainers are around here. I don't know what farriers are around here. They don't know. And solely the equestrian industry relies upon Facebook is a huge one. Google and word of mouth, just knowing your neighbor and saying, hey, who do you know? But that all three of those are unfortunately, they're all biased, they're time consuming, unreliable. Um, and for me, I said, why don't we have a centralized platform for all things equestrian? Because
Mhm.
I hear so many struggles and so many complaints and so many in search of posts on Facebook that make me want to scream when I see them. Um, that we should have a way to search, have a search engine to look
Mhm.
for the professionals that we may need. So be a connection, form of communication and media connection between equine professionals and equestrians. So equestrians can search on our platform, which is the Equine Professionals Club that me and my co-founder and sister have created together. And we have, of course, you as a member, a little pin on a profile for each person that becomes a member and creates a profile. So it's servicing to increase the accessibility of the industry,
Mhm.
um, and allow that form of connection that is so skewed right now and so difficult right now. And I think that's a big part of solving the problems we see in the barn management, the financial aspect of things is how are we going to build a community that is possible for young professionals to grow and start. And I think getting their start is so difficult, and you find and you hear that a lot. And so with the Equine Professionals Club, our goal is to be a collaborative community camaraderie of equestrians who have access to one another. They can direct message one another through our site. There are business insights to look at the traffic of how your profile is trending, as well as our content hub, which we do interviews with our members, which I had done with you,
Yes.
and wrote an article about their expertise, their insights. Everyone's story matters. And that's something that's really on my heart is that whether you are a Olympian or a local trail rider, trainer, backing, breaking trainer, you have a story and your story matters. And I think it's important that people are able to share that and know who's in their area so they can connect with those people.
It's awesome. It's brilliant. You're absolutely right. And I'm hoping that it really takes off because I think it's going to serve a lot of needs. I've
Yeah.
been in that situation of looking and I'm like, well, how do we find what we're looking for? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
So,
I think one thing that I like to just kind of point out is being willing to grow with the platform, because when
mm,
there's not very many profiles on there, it can be, oh, that it isn't set up yet. Oh, it's not, usable yet. The only way it's going to revolutionize the industry is if we have people like you yourself who
mm,
say, hey, I see the future vision of this. I want
mhm,
to get involved and help contribute to the growth of our industry. And that's exactly what we ask is for people to grow with us. And
mhm.
the only way we can grow and provide this service to the industry is if people create profiles and become members and join us in the journey. So
Yeah,
we're excited to continue to grow.
I'm excited for you. And I will keep on telling people, join this directory, which is what I've been doing. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. So, as we fully wrap up, I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Sure.
So, the first one is, what is your favorite horse breed and why?
So horse breed is I love all warm bloods for competitive reasons. I
Mhm.
can't identify in particular a specific warm blood because I think there's so many great things in the whole, so many mixes.
Yeah.
But I had a recent trip to Europe and just seeing the quality of those warm bloods over there is just absolutely incredible. And yeah, I am a sucker for a very nice warm blood for dressage.
That would make sense. That would be your sport specific breed, no
My
doubt.
go-to, yes.
Right, right, right. And then if you could ride anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, so I have seen a lot of videos of safari riding, which
Uh-huh.
was so cool. So I would love to do that. I have ridden on the beach before, so that was an amazing experience. But I've seen some safari riding of getting up close to giraffes. That would be so cool.
That would be very cool. Well, we'll have to keep on exchanging when we see those opportunities. There's a few people around here that have been talking about that too. Okay, and then I'm going to ask you two more questions. What has been your biggest influence? Who has been your biggest influence in your equestrian journey?
So this is a very special one for me.
Hmm.
And it's not a horse person,
Yeah,
actually, and
yeah.
it's my mom.
Oh,
And that is such a huge part. She is such a huge part of who I am and who I've become in her support throughout my mental health journey, but my equestrian journey and the life skills that she has helped me learn along the path of communication, responsibility, not burning bridges, um, being humble, never, you see so many people on Facebook
mhm,
going on the laundry list of their accomplishments, um, professionalism, my identity,
mhm,
her teaching me that and bringing that into the horses. Horses are a huge part of who I am, but they're not all of who I am. And she has been my biggest influence in not only the reason why I've been so successful within the sport, but within my mental standpoint now and in my recovery. And I think just that partnering those two things together has made me who I am together with the horses and that recovery. And she's been such an important role model to help me be successful within the industry as well.
That's beautiful. I love it. And then my very last question for you is, what advice would you give to somebody that's coming up behind you in this equestrian sport?
Yeah. So I would say going back to identity, I really think that is my biggest piece of advice. Um, Work hard, but also prioritize family or friends or a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever that is. Your relationships, I guess, to
Hmm.
summarize. Your faith, have the different branches off of your tree. And horses can be a big branch, but it's not your whole trunk. So I think it's important that we invest in other areas of our life. And for me right now, I'm investing in school and my career one day. And right now, horses is still a part of my week. I'm riding on the hunt seat team and going back home to visit my mare and ride friends' horses. But it's okay. And something I've learned is it's okay for there to be a season where horses doesn't take up your everyday.
Hmm.
And we have the ability to do this for our whole life. Not many sports can say the same. Um, and I think that's something that is helpful to realize in the season of life that you're in, that I can always come back to this, or I can always have that other chance to involve horses the way I want to. But it's okay to have a period of time where they're not consuming every part of your day.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That my daughter would give the same advice, right? And she's roughly your age, and this has been 3 years of choosing not to ride and to not have horses as a part of her life. And her comfort is it's in my bones. I'm equestrian
Mhm.
and will always be an equestrian. I don't have to be active to have that part of my passion.
Exactly.
And her decision to, I will come back to this when the time is right. And I
Exactly.
think I think that's true not only for those coming up behind you, but also those who are coming up behind me and those who are ahead of me, is to be able to say, this isn't my season. I've been doing this. I've been loving this. It's been hard. I need a break. It's okay to take a holy pause and say,
Yes.
yeah, I need to change my discipline. I need to change my routine. I need to change my focus. I need to,
Go
you
back
know,
to basics. Yes.
yeah. Yeah, the whole thing. I think there has to be a whole lot more grace in
Yes.
how we approach it in order to get to what you've been saying, that balance and that peace
Yes.
comprehensively. Yeah.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. And that is something that's very important to me. And I think what others need to hear as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So on that note, tell us how we can find you online.
Yes. So I, of course, have my personal accounts that I keep a little bit more private. But in terms of the Equine Professionals Club, our website is equineprofessionalsclub.com. You can find us there, as well as our Instagram is Equine Pros Club at Equine Pros Club, all one together. And then Equine Professionals Club on Facebook. Easy search. I'd love for people to stay up to date on the content we have coming out. We have social media content based off of our content hub, the articles and interviews, which is super educational, as well as our posts on learning how to create a profile, how do you utilize business insights, all of those kinds of content as well, more EPC related. So I'd love for people to check us out there. And of course, can email me at Katie Staib at equineprofessionals.com,
That,
club.com.
yeah, that is awesome. Well, I am honored that you joined me today, and I hope you get to enjoy this. We're recording this in the winter. By the time this comes out, I'll be curious to see what date it lands on and what the weather is then. But it's a beautiful day in this winter here, and I hope you
Yeah.
enjoy that and continue to find balance in your riding and in your work.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, same here. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Liberated Equestrian Podcast. We will connect with you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Liberated Equestrian Podcast. I'm so grateful to have you as a part of this community. If you loved today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow equestrians. Be sure to join our Patreon community at patreon.com/liberatedequestrian, where you'll be able to connect with fellow equestrians and get access to after-show content as well as exclusive coaching and downloadable resources. For more information, resources, show notes, you can visit stableminded.us and the Liberated Equestrian. Together, let's live as liberated equestrians. The Liberated Equestrian Podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The content shared in each episode, including discussions, interviews, and advice, reflects the personal opinions and professional insights of the host and guest. The information provided on this podcast is not a substitute for professional mental health care, counseling, or therapy. Listeners should consult a licensed healthcare professional for specific advice regarding their personal situations. Reliance on any information provided by this podcast is solely at the listener's discretion and risk. While every effort is made to provide accurate and up-to-date information, neither Lisa Pulliam nor the Liberated Equestrian Podcast assumes any responsibilities for errors, omissions, or outcomes resulting from the use of this information. By listening to this podcast, you agree that neither the host, guest, or affiliated party shall be held liable for any damages, loss, or harm arising from the use or misuse of the information presented. If you are experiencing a mental health emergency, please seek immediate assistance from a qualified healthcare provider or call your emergency services in your area. Thank you for listening to the Liberated Equestrian Podcast.